Shari here today, and I am going to be making this fall pop-up box card. So the first thing I have here is the pop-up box die, and it's cut from paper bag cardstock. And I'm just going to add some wood grain stamping to the outside of this box. So I have the Woodgrain Backdrops here. I'm going to mount that on a block. You can tell mine is well loved. But I'm just going to mount that to a large block, and I'm going to stamp that across this piece so that I have wood grain everywhere. And I was trying to decide which direction I wanted it to go, and I decided I wanted the wood grain to go up and down so that I didn't have to worry about connecting it around the box, because that stamp isn't quite as long as that piece is. So if you do it this way, you don't have to try to connect it end to end. You just lay them beside each other. So I'm going to ink that up with some walnut ink. And I'll just start on one end and stamp that down. So this is going to take 3 stamps, I believe. And then each time I'm going to shift it a little bit so that my wood grain doesn't repeat exactly. This is such a small piece that you really won't tell, but it's just a little added detail. You can get some of those little knots in there. So I can set that aside, and now I'm going to work on some ink blending. So I've got some oxides here in a variety of colors. I have squeezed lemonade, mustard seed, ripe persimmon, carved pumpkin, and candied apple. And I'm using the little finger dauber sponges just to sponge it around and just get a whole bunch of little blobs of color here. And these are going to be my fall leaves. So I'm just going to do a whole bunch of it because I'm going to stamp out a bunch of these piles of leaves. And I'm just sort of going back and forth and blending the colors together. There's really no rhyme or reason to any of it, because they're all going to get cut out in the end anyway. You do want to make sure you kind of have some distinct colors though, and it's not all blended together into one. So I'm using archival ink here. I did a little experimenting and inking over a stamped image. You can see it on the paper there, just made the image ghosted. So I experimented in stamping inks on top of the oxide, and this was actually the one that worked the best. So the archival ink gave me the crispest image on top of the oxide ink. So I'm going to be stamping out, I don't know, 7 piles of leaves, actually. You can see I've already cut one out there, so stamping out a few more. And I'm also going to do some individual leaves. So I'm adding some more ink, because I wasn't quite sure how much space I needed. So I'm just doing the same on the rest. And this is just unisolar white cardstock. This isn't any kind of special paper. So you can see there I'm stamping out some individual leaves as well. Now these leaves are all from the Jump for Joy stamp set, and I'm going to be using some animals from this stamp set as well as a couple others. And I did my coloring ahead of time for this video, so it wasn't too terribly long. So we're going to skip over the coloring on this one. So these 2 sizes of leaves in the pile come from the Jump for Joy set. And then I'm just going to use the coordinating dies to cut all these pieces out. So you can see how great that looks. And there's my little bowl of all the pieces that we'll see here when I get to assembly. Now I decided I wanted to put this pop-up box inside a square shaped card. And so I'm going to create the scene for the front. I'm going to use this watercolor Wishes blue paper. I cut it out with a dotted square die. And then I'm going to use this green from the Nitpicky Fall. And I'm just cutting that down to 2 squares that will go on the inside of my card. And then I'm going to use a leftover piece to cut grass for the front of my card. So the idea was this plaid sweater paper was kind of the grass on the inside and the outside. So I'm cutting it with the square so that I get the same edging as I have on the blue piece, and then I can cut the top of it with the grass dye. So all four sides end up cut nicely with the dye. So I held that down with some low tack tape and I cut the top to be grass, and I just really like the pattern at the bottom. I think it kind of gives it a nice texture. I'm just going to adhere that down to that front panel with some adhesive runner. A lot of times I like to ink the edge of the grass, but this is going to get covered up with all the critters and the leaves I'm going to put on the front, so I didn't bother on this one. Now I'm going to go ahead and put that whole panel on the front of my square card. I'm using some really strong adhesive, the Tombow Extreme, to make sure that it doesn't come off. And I'm just lining it up with my card base by using my desk as a straight edge. And I'm just going to glue that down. Now I'm also going to go ahead and put the interior pieces on. So these are the two green pieces I cut that are square, and they're just going to line up in the center, basically so the whole inside of my card is like the grass. Because the idea behind my card was that the little critters on the front are raking the pile of leaves, and then in the pile of leaves they find the box and all their friends pop out. So you're kind of going to be looking at the scene from above, the pile of leaves with the box in the center, and so I wanted the whole base to be green. You could have also cut your card from a piece of green cardstock if you didn't want to use the pattern paper. So now it's time to work on assembling my box a little bit. So the die cuts all these score lines, and I'm just going to go through and fold all those and make sure they're nice and sharp with my bone folder. So these two triangular pieces on the bottom fold in. They're basically the base of the box. And then everything else folds around to create the box. The little flaps on the top will fold out. So this cardstock's pretty stiff because it's pretty thick. So I'm just making sure that the tops are lined up so that my fold is nice and straight where it's supposed to be, and my box doesn't end up wonky. And then now I can fold those flaps outward. And make sure they're nice and creased. So I also have cut some of the inside pieces that go inside the box. This die comes with two different kinds. It comes with a straight one, and I've cut 3 here. Those are the ones I'm going to use. It also comes with one that goes diagonal inside the box. And when you use the diagonal, you can only use the one, but when you use the straight ones, you can layer it. So I've got 3 cut here because I'm going to kind of create layers inside my box. And I'm going to go ahead and put these inside the box before I assemble the box as a whole. And I feel like when you do this, it's easier to line them up. Before I put them in the box, however, I decided it would be best to put the little banner that goes at the back. I just think it's easier to adhere that down when it's laying flat. So I'm stamping the sentiment, Happy Fall. This sentiment and these stamps come from the Forest Feast set, and I'm just going to stamp it on the banner that also comes in the pop-up box die, and I've just cut it from some fake tan cardstock. You can also see those little cream colored swoopy things that I've got laying behind my brown insert there. Those are also cut with pieces from the pop-up box die, and they help hold the little banner up high, kind of like it's popping out of the box. So I'm just going to assemble these flat using my liquid glue tube, just with a dot of glue on the end of each one, and then I can just lay my banner on top. And then I can do the same on the bottom and lay that little insert piece on top. And this is way easier than trying to get it to stand up when it's inside the box. The other pieces that I put inside the box, I waited until my box was assembled so I could kind of see their placement with each other. So now it's time to sort of start arranging things. So I got my pile of leaves in front. My little raccoon is from Forest Feast as well. And then the owl is from Jump for Joy. Those limbs are not quite glued down yet. I just put them there as a placeholder so I could stamp my sentiment and get it spaced correctly. Now I can glue those limbs down. Those also come from Jump for Joy. And I'll just trim off the excess that's hanging off the sides. I'm not going to put the animals on just yet. I was going to pop them up on some foam adhesive, so I wanted to work on my inside first. I didn't end up doing that in the end, but it was just so I could work on something that was flat. So now I'm going to work on assembling my box. You can see I've put some double-sided adhesive tape on those little folds that fold back. And I'm just going to line it up. This is going to go in the back. It's going to be the backmost layer. And then you'll see I'm going to do the same thing with the other two pieces, even though they don't have anything on them. So I'm going to fold those pieces back, put a little bit of that double-sided tape on there, and trim off the excess with my scissors. Doing the same thing on the second, just trim off the excess so nothing's sticking out. And then I can peel off the adhesive on one side and layer those straight inside my box. And then I'm going to fold them back over on themselves like that. And I'm going to adhere all these down at once. So I'm going ahead and peeling off the backer. And then I forgot I need to put one on the box itself. Trim off this excess. And then you can peel off that backer and just lay it over and fold it on itself. And now I know it's always going to fold flat. So now to put the box inside the card. So those two triangular pieces, you need to put adhesive on those as well. So I'm just making sure they're nice and stuck down. And then I'm going to take the backer pieces off only one side first. And then you can line up that diagonal that those two triangular pieces make with the seam on the inside. Then you can pull the other side off and then fold the card closed. And now you know the card will always close flat, just like you knew the box would always stay flat. So the idea was that this box just popped out of the big pile of leaves. So all those other leaves that I cut out and colored, I'm going to put them around the box so that this box looks like it's in the middle of a big pile of leaves. So I'm putting one on each side, and then I'm going to fill in between the two with another pile and tuck it underneath so it looks like one huge pile of leaves. I just think this looks so fun and bright and colorful. So for the other pieces, I wanted the squirrel and the owl to be outside the box. So I tried to figure out the best way. I put them on the box, but I had to make sure that they were kind of out of the way of the little flaps. And then the little squirrel, which is from Pick a Pat, and the fox, which is from Jump for Joy, are on the inside. I also cut the little swirls that come from the pop-up box die out of some of the glitter cardstock in some fall colors. And I know this is kind of hard to see because you're looking from above, but I'm just using my tweezers to help place those on the back side of some of those inserts, so those swirls look like they're popping out of the box too. So now I'm putting the owl on the outside. I'm putting it just where his hand is glued, so he's kind of out of the way, and then the raccoon on the other side. Now you have to make sure you put them in the right place. You could not put them on the other corners because that's where it folds. So they need to make sure they're on, when the card's closed, the two pieces that go flat. So you'll see here in a minute what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm just using my tweezers to help kind of put pressure and put those two pieces together with the glue because I can't get my finger down in there. So I did some other decoration. I used a pumpkin from Pick of the Patch and a mushroom from Forest Beast. So, you know, when these little guys raked this pile of leaves, they found a whole bunch of surprises inside. And then they dropped their rakes because their friends were in the box. So I left the rakes and just laid them down on the ground like they dropped them in the pile of leaves. So I'm testing to make sure I've got it on the right sides so they fold correctly. And it still closes. And I had one of those swirlies kind of sticking out, so I removed it. Now I'll put it in a different place here in a minute. But it was sticking out the side when the card was closed. So I did not end up using foam adhesive to put these two little guys on the front like I thought I would, just because this was kind of a bulky card with all that stuff on the inside. And now these little individual leaves that I colored, I'm going to add those to the branches to add some color up on the top part of the card. And then I also added some just sort of scattered around, some in the box, some kind of out in the grass. Because we all know how it is when you rake leaves. It's not perfect. There's always some left behind. And then here's the swirl I pulled off that was sticking out of my box. I still felt like I needed one more of these in the box. So I ended up putting it on the back side of the banner, which worked out really nicely because it gave it even more height, which is kind of cool. So here is the finished card with the little raccoon and owl raking and then surprise the box on the inside with their friends and all the fall fun. So here's another look at the front of the card and the inside. Such a fun card. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.